Alright, take two. Because the first time I tried to record this, my phone storage got full on me. But something I want to talk about today is I have these regulars that come in. And the first time I had them, it's a family of four, mom, dad, two kids, and they usually come in pretty close to close. And the rest of the servers they kind of resent them just a touch, and I'll explain why. Now, when I first took this guy's order, he was like, "How many ounces of chicken fajitas come on the skillet?" And I was like, "It's 6 ounces." He's like, "All right. For the sides, how many grams of rice does it come with?" I'm like, "Ooh, like we don't really have a measurement for that. They kind of have a serving spoon that they use as a standard." But I was like, I would say it's probably about 150 to 180 grams of cooked rice. And he's like, "All right, let me get chicken fajitas, no butter, no skillet, no guacamole, no sour cream, sub pico with a side of lettuce." Now, the rest of the servers, especially the newer ones, they mess up his order quite frequently. And I feel for him, because the third time I had this table, I finally asked him. I was like, "Sir, I have to ask." And he's like, "Shoot, go ahead." I'm like, "Do you track your calories?" And he's like, "Man, I try." He's like, "I'm getting older, and I still want to be mobile, healthy." So I was like, "Man, I give you merit. And I was like, "You're gonna love this." And I pulled out my phone and I show him my before photo, and of course they were all like, "Whoa," like, "What?" And he's asking me, "How'd you do it?" Like kind of admiring the consistency and the discipline. And I was like, "Yeah, first couple months I was able to cruise at 1,200 calories or so, and then a couple cheat days later I was like, all right, let's do a solid 1,900-ish. That way we can manage this consistency." And he's talking about, the things that get him, the snacks at night. And I was like, "Man, I hear you, So in this video, it kind of inspired me to I'm gonna share some of the physical and mental tricks that I use on my weight loss journey. Now, number one of my coworkers one day, he was like, "Chopsticks are the dumbest thing ever. Who would ever use chopsticks?" And I was like, "Not so fast, Micah." Because he knows about my weight loss journey. He's like, "What?" I was like, "I actually use chopsticks on my weight loss journey in order to help me eat slower." Because, well, I kind of I had learned that if I ate slower, then it'd give my brain more time to realize that I was actually full and not hungry anymore. And it actually worked. I would actually get full faster. And the other thing is my hand would just start to hurt. And I was like, all right, I don't want to eat anymore because it sucks. Let's put this back in the fridge, save it for later. And then eventually I got a little too good with chopsticks to where it kind of just became fun to use, and I kind of grew past the purpose, but it still, I still was able to eat slower. And then another trick I want to tell you is anytime there's a mini version of your favorite snack or favorite candy, always go with the mini version or the fun size. Because think about it. Say you want a Snickers. You want to enjoy Snickers, right? Now, a full-size Snicker bar is 280 calories or so. Probably has 19 grams of fat in it or something. I'm not too sure off the top of my head because I don't have Snickers in my cabinet. But if you switch to just the mini little fun size Snickers, what I realized is that you can grab 3 And now in your brain, you have just eaten 3 Snickers. However, the little mini fun-sized Snickers are like 50 calories a piece. So you just saved yourself like 150 calories or 130 calories. And in your brain, the psychological effect, you still opened 3 Snickers instead of just 1. Therefore, you consume less calories. Now, another thing is like another trick to eat slower is one of my favorite snacks became dry cereal. You know, like basically find ways to make your food more tedious to eat, because the easier it is to physically consume, the more likely you are to overconsume, if that makes sense. Like, back to the Snickers, and even if you crushed 4 or 5, it's still the same amount of calories as if you were to crush a full-size Snicker bar. But then again, think about this. You burn more calories opening each Snickers. Now, it's marginal, but over time, over a year of consistently doing that, it added up. It contributed, A lot of people say 1% doesn't matter, but 1% every day over the course of a year, if I gave you $1 every day for a year, at the end of the year, you're going to have $365. That's a fairly substantial amount of money, So it contributes, it adds up. Now, another trick I would use, and this isn't really eating, but it's something I want to mention, is everything burns calories. Everything. I'm burning calories right now. You're constantly burning calories. Me moving, doing this with my hands, that burns calories. So find any way you can to burn some extra calories. If you're chilling on the couch and you have a sink full of dishes, go do them. Because you'll burn more calories by doing your dishes. It's a win-win. You get clean dishes and you burn more calories and you contribute more accelerated success on your weight loss journey. That's why when I'm at work, that's why I actually don't mind helping out so much. That's why I don't mind going and grabbing the bartenders the racks of the heavy glasses, or running trays all across the restaurant, or helping run drinks, or grabbing restock. That's why I don't mind when a server comes up to me and is like, "Hey Dillon, this tray is too heavy for me. Can you come grab it?" That's why I don't mind. Because not only do I like to help out, but I know that I burn more calories doing that. Therefore, it's going to get me leaner or help me stay leaner or allow me to eat more food, depending on what my goals are. Like, everything burns calories. Don't get caught up thinking that all your calorie burning and all your weight loss success depends on what you do in the gym. Because what you do in the gym is actually very, very marginal. Despite it being, well, at least to me, the most fun part of the journey, it's, in a workout, you might burn max 400 calories if you're doing some crazy high intensity squats with some cardio added on. But it adds up. Those small things that you do, sweeping, doing chores, it adds up. And another thing I want to mention is your environment. Setting up your environment for success. It is if you don't buy your own groceries, it can be a little tricky. If you're somebody who's not of age, where you still live with your parents and your parents still do the grocery shopping, be open and honest and just ask them, "Hey, next time you go to the grocery store, can you get me these foods?" And if they buy certain foods that you aren't able to control yourself around, be like, "Hey, Mom, Dad, please skip that aisle next time you go to the grocery store." and make sure they know about your goals. 99.9% of the time, they're going to be supportive. You know? Now, I could always tell when my family would get a little annoyed when I started talking too much about protein, but now I got them macro track and they finally came around. But it's the little things like that, setting up your environment. You know, if you find yourself in an environment where you know you're more likely to overconsume on calories, do your best to avoid those environments. Somebody asked me, Dylan, I love to go out to eat. You know, how do you deal with that? How do you go out to all these restaurants and track? And I'm like, well, I don't. You know, it's not that I never went to a restaurant while I was on my dieting journey, but it wasn't something I frequently did. You know, especially because at the time I didn't have a lot of money to be going and spending on going out to eat. But even if I did, I knew that if I just ate at home, I was going to be less likely to overconsume calories, you know? And somebody asked me, well, Dylan, I love going out with my friends and having a good time. You know, you can still do that. You know, you can go hang out with your friends and you don't have to order anything. You don't have to order what they order. You can still sit with your friends and just order a chicken breast. And another thing that I told them was, look, I love going out to eat too. Me and my family growing up, we'd probably go out to eat like 2-3 times a week. Sometimes more if one of us forgot to take meat out of the freezer. And I told them, I was like, look, the fun that you have going out to a restaurant, eating those foods, hanging out with your friends, it will be outweighed by the success that you will have on your dieting journey. Because once I moved in with my sister, I kind of started doing a lot of the grocery shopping, you know? So I was able to control my environment. I would buy things like canned chicken. I was able to put almond milk in the fridge, you know, dieting friendly foods. If you have foods in your pantry that you know you just can't control yourself around for whatever reason, then don't purchase them, you know? And another thing that helps, you know, especially when you're out at like a function or something, or somebody offers you a food that you know you shouldn't eat, that you know is not conducive to your weight loss goals, one thing that I learned is say no as quick as possible. Tell yourself no as quick as possible. Get in the habit of when you see a birthday cake, a cookie, a sweet, a piece of fried food, or anything that you know is not conducive to your goals, be quick to say no. Because if you allow yourself to think about it, then your brain starts getting attached to the possibility of eating said food. Like my manager today, I was training today. I'll probably talk about it tomorrow, and I got a trainer meal. And what I got was chicken breasts, and I ordered a side dinner salad, and I just put my chicken breasts on top, and then put salsa and a little bit of queso on it. And that's what I ate for dinner. And I was turning in my checkout to my general manager, and he had a Chengo platter. And he was like, you want anything off of here? And I was like, no. He's like, you never eat at night. And I was like, what? I just ate a big salad. You know? He was obviously kidding. But you see how quick I was to say no? Because if I sat there and I was like, and then I probably would have talked myself into grabbing a taquito off of the plate. And another thing that I learned is when you're on a diet and you're in an environment where somebody might be offering you food, especially something that's not macro friendly, don't go around telling people that you're dieting. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but when somebody offers you those foods, just say you're not hungry. Or just say that you already ate. Because nobody can argue with that. But if you say that you're dieting, well, then they're going to be like, oh, one cookie's not going to hurt. One brownie's not going to hurt. Dillon, you can have a slice of cake. Like, yeah, I could. But if every time somebody told me, oh, Dillon, you could just have one, well, then I'd get to a point where it wasn't just one. If I did that every time, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next thing you know, I'm not in a deficit anymore. You see what I'm saying? So find tedious ways to eat your food. Find any way to burn calories. That's why I love my weighted backpack so much. In fact, I might go on a walk right after this video just because, well, I think it's peaceful. And number 3, be quick to say no. Be quick to turn down those foods you shouldn't have. Because the quicker you say no, then the quicker you take the negotiation off the table. You know? The quicker you say no, the quicker you tell your brain, no, we're not doing that. And the quicker you're able to accept that you're not going to eat that food. Now, I'm sure I got many more weight loss tricks that I've used that I don't remember at this current moment, but that's all I got for today. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.